IRS. So joining me now is Gary Shapley, an IRS whistleblower who was at the heart of the investigation into Hunter Biden, the president's son. And he saw something that he had not seen in his many years of working as an IRS agent, that a case that he felt had clear felony behavior was being slow-walked by his higher-ups. So he joins me, and Shapley's attorney, Mark Lytle, as well. Gentlemen, welcome back to the story. Good to have you here today. So first question, Mr. Shapley, for you is, what's your reaction to what you see here today? And what do you think about the fact that Hunter Biden, who you believed was guilty all along in this case, has decided, as late as today, I guess, that you were right?
Well, Martha, ultimately, what happens in this courtroom today, or whether he was charged or not, was not the reason why Joe Ziegler and I came forward. We came forward because of what we saw DOJ doing and providing preferential treatment and political interference in this case. And this is kind of it's a little bit of vindication, but it's really not why we came forward. And now we're more focused on how are we going to hold DOJ accountable for the things that they've actually proved themselves that we were right in the way that they were handling this case. And hopefully there'll be some mechanism to do so.
Yeah, it's such a roller coaster here, because now you have the Department of Justice, who was finally ready to move forward with these charges, put back on their heels today when he walks in the door and says, well, I'm going to say I'm guilty, but I'm not really guilty. Mark Lytle, what do you make of all this?
Hi, Martha. It's a disservice to the American public, to be honest with you. When someone comes before the criminal justice system, the public needs to know whether the person's found guilty or not guilty. And to allow someone to come forward and claim innocence and then also resolve the charges, it's not going to end there. This case would proceed through sentencing process and beyond, where you would have a defendant saying he's always been innocent, and the judge allowed that to go forward, and the American public would not have any of the principles that are implied in sentencing, like deterrence to the general community, deterrence to the individual, punishment for wrongdoing. So it's really a disservice to the American public if the Alford plea is allowed to continue.
I mean, it seems like it's another example of Hunter Biden just expecting that he should be treated differently than everyone else. You know, okay, well, I'll cop to a guilty plea here, but I don't want to walk around for the rest of my life, you know, feeling like I did anything wrong. So that's what I want as part of this deal. Let me just put up, Mr. Shapley, Hunter Biden's alleged expenses here. This goes back to the period that you investigated as an IRS agent, and these things stood out to you as not legitimate, legal tax behavior. And it goes to expenses that were broken down. He received more than $1.2 million in financial support, and it was used to pay for various expenses, but he didn't choose to use that money to pay his taxes during that period. Tell everybody, take us all back, what really were the early red flags to you, and what happened when you raised these issues and said, you know, I don't care about the name on the top of this return, but something doesn't smell right here?
Sure, yeah. So Joe Ziegler, case agent, I mean, he developed this case, and it was based on a lot of data that we had internal with IRS. And as the case got assigned up in Delaware, it really became apparent very early on in early 2020 that they were not following the normal processes. We had search warrants that were ready to go. We had some other investigative steps we wanted to take. And each time it got close to some of these other things we needed to look at in this case, whether it be FARA or other charges, we just got pushed back at every single step we took. I took it internally to IRS senior leadership, and they ignored the issue. And then ultimately it required me to seek counsel and to go to Congress, which has been a help, and bring this stuff forward. And I think that the steps that DOJ has taken has proven that they didn't do the right thing in the first place. I mean, on May 15th, 2023, David Weiss's office was offering this defendant a non-prosecution agreement. And of course, that morphed into the sweetheart plea deal that fell apart. And ultimately, for this defendant to be charged for the gun charge and for the tax charges. The same tax charges that Joe Ziegler wrote up in his special agent report were charged. It goes to show that DOJ is proving that what they did initially was wrong, and it shouldn't have taken two of us to really ruin our careers to bring this forward and for the American people.
I know that you testified that U.S. Attorney Weiss, David Weiss, who was the top person on this, basically you went to him and he said, look, this isn't up to me. Like, this goes above my head, right? And he claimed that he never said that to you. Is he lying?
Well, even in his testimony to Congress, he admitted that after the President Biden appointed United States Attorney in Washington, D.C., Matthew Graves, declined to bring charges there in D.C., that he requested that special charging authority. And he wouldn't say in his testimony that it was denied, but when you ask for something and you're not given it, you're denied. And then ultimately he had to go out to California to another President Biden appointed U.S. Attorney. And Martin Estrada there, in his testimony, he says that the reason why he didn't want to partner with David Weiss was because of a personnel issue, a manpower issue. And it's just, with other cases the other cases that my group has in Central District, California, it's clear that it's not a manpower issue. Yeah. So, it was this political interference.
As you claimed all along, this case was being treated differently because of who it was. And it's very ironic that now he's pushing for this guilty but not really guilty plea. And now the Department of Justice is saying, wait a minute, we have our big case that we want to bring against this individual, even though they kept sort of kicking it to the side of the road. And I just want to remind people on the way out here, Leslie Wolf, who was one of the people who was you and Mr. Ziegler say was just pushing you off this all the time. We're not going to go to the House in Delaware. We're not investigating there. Why would we shoot ourselves in the foot right before the midterm? She said, do not focus on political figure one in any of this, which of course was the president, Joe Biden, who has now decided not to run again. So Mark Lytle and Gary Shapley, thank you. You've always been good to us coming on for these stories as they have broken, and I appreciate you being here today. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.